Okay, so I think we'll start this off. I wanted to first thank everyone for joining us for distribution supply chain and what art shipping might look like post COVID-19. We are going to do this bi-weekly now, not weekly, so we can give you important content and stuff that really brings enough information for the future of what art shipping might look like here. The intent of today's webinar is to relay a full spectrum of experience that allows art shipping to take place. So we've brought together a senior group of representatives from their respective industries to give their opinions on what art shipping might look like post-COVID-19. So I'm going to do the introductions here for everyone real quick. Of course, we have Fritz Dietl of Dietl International. He's going to give us the opinion of what art shipping might look like for the US region. Sean Magovern. Sean is the Vice President of Products and Services for Rockit Cargo. Rockit Cargo is a parent company of Dietl International. Sean has 35 plus years of experience in the entertainment industry as a freight forwarding project manager, as well as stage production manager for major musicians, including Bruce Springsteen and David Bowie. Do I need to add anything else on that, Sean?
No, you captured it. Thank you. Nice to meet everyone.
Dr. Thomas Schneider, Managing Director of Hosncomp. Founded in 1903, Hosncomp is an owner-operated family enterprise in its fifth generation, headquartered in Germany. One of the largest art shipping logistic providers in the world with roughly 600 employees. They also ship high-tech, B2B, B2C logistics, removals, relocation, and archives, as well as art. And Jillian C. Daza. Jillian is the Manager of Sales for New York and Connecticut Lufthansa. Jillian has 15 years of experience at Lufthansa Cargo, including world strategy and business development. So I also want to say my internet connection is bad right now. So if I cut out, Fritz Dietl will take over hosting this panel. But we want to hop right in and start asking the question of our panelists. So this is going to go to Sean and Jillian, I think, to start with, so we can see what the adjustments the airline industry and shipping in general is taking now that there is a new normal going to take place. So Jillian, maybe to start, what's your perspective about airline capacities and pricing happening right now?
Yeah, so I'll just start by saying the airline industry, as most of you know, is one that's heavily impacted by this pandemic and by this crisis. The airline industry is one of the first industries that were affected by the pandemic, mostly starting in Asia, which is also a big market for us. And the expectation is actually that the airline industry will be as well one of the last industries which will feel the effects of the pandemic, just for the basic reason that people, even after everything is open, may not feel so comfortable to fly anymore. There's also new normals involved. So a lot of us have gotten used to working with Zoom and through Skype, and some companies might also not feel the need to have business travel as much as in the past. Business travel is a large part of our revenue incomes. So we do expect that for us, we will not reach a new normal until about 2023. And even in that case, we would do so with about 100 aircraft less in our network. At the moment, 700 out of 763. I'm sorry, Jason.
No, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So at the moment, about 700 out of 763 of our aircraft are on the ground. And we are fortunate that being a Lufthansa group, that we also operate freighters, because that is a big part of the cash flow that's coming into our company at the moment. Lufthansa, along with many other airlines at the moment, will need governmental support in order to be able to overcome this unprecedented situation on its own. And if we think about just, for instance, the United States, the amount of belly capacity that is completely gone. So all of our belly capacity, with the exception of about 4 stations and just a few flights per week, are all completely gone. And the loss in capacity that we are feeling at the moment for cargo is equivalent to about 41 freighters worth of capacity every single day. And that's quite a bit. To be able to judge when our passenger aircraft will come back, for a long time, our company has been saying maybe towards the end of May, but even then, it's not 100% guaranteed, and it wouldn't, for sure, would not be at our full network that we had pre-COVID. So at the moment, the supply and demand is actually changing each month. The demand has dropped. What we're seeing is a lot of essential goods that are flying on our aircraft that's keeping our flights full, because the capacity in the market and with Lufthansa has drastically decreased.
Okay, one of the questions that I have on this is well, first we had a question from our group here, and it's asking, can you repeat the number of planes that are grounded for Lufthansa?
700.
Out of?
That's worldwide, out of 763.
Right. So, and you have permanently grounded flights as well too, or planes, right? Decommissioned planes?
Right. We have, and we've also, there's a subsidiary of the Lufthansa Group, which is Germanwings, and that subsidiary has unfortunately been shut down completely because we do not expect that the leisure travel will pick up anytime soon.
So when you talk about a new normal, what are you talking about when you say new normal? You said 2023, and I know from a conversation we had previously that you discussed that was the CEO of your company saying that, correct? So what are you talking about when you say new normal?
Well, there's a few things. You know, we've gone through new normals after 9/11. I'm sure there will be plenty of new normals in the airline industry, the way that we operate, the way that people fly. We see different measures that we've had to take also in our warehouses. So speaking specifically about air cargo now, we have had to implement social distancing and certain measures, but I think also there will be quite a bit of network changes as well. Which when we talk about 2023, that will be our new normal. We'll then see the full effects of COVID, but we're not expecting that everything will be exactly the same as it was before.
Gotcha.
We will for sure be flying with less aircraft overall.
Sean, do you want to add into this and from your perspective and discuss a little bit about what you see?
Well, I can say that everything Jillian has outlined for Lufthansa, we're seeing repeated with carriers around the globe. The sea change of freight availability is just not been seen since 9/11. All the loss of those wide-body aircraft is going to be felt for a long time. And even when international passenger traffic does return, as she outlined, there will be limited number of flights compared to the pre-COVID reality, and that will continue to put pressure on the freighter market to move that product.
Currently, product is being moved through a bunch of freighter service. We're not using wide bodies as much as we were previously. And Sean, your background, you work often with charter flights as well too. So what do you see as far as the charter market changing over this period of time and freighter service?
Well, the demand is just off the charts right now. To be honest, we're seeing it right now, focused on a lot of the emergency medical equipment that the world is trying to shift around, mostly out of Asia. But as both the European continent and the United States and everyone else starts to get back to business, we're going to see some of those traditional supply chains fire back up, and that demand is going to be added to the market. So we foresee the demand for freighters to remain extremely high until we get back to some kind of balance in the marketplace.
And what is that doing in terms of pricing for per kilos on freighters and just moving goods in general?
It's definitively driving things up. I think we have economists at universities around the world writing new chapters on the supply and demand equation, if not whole new textbooks. So it is driving it up, and we do see it remaining elevated for quite a while.
So you and I had a conversation the other day about this briefly, and we were talking about, and I guess this new normal is what we were talking about after this, we get to a stabilization point. You were saying that you still see costs higher than what they were pre-COVID after this takes place, correct?
Correct.
So they will come down slightly, but they will level out at a higher rate than what we are used to for just shipping in general.
That's our belief, and I think several of us have been on a number of industry webinars as participants ourselves, and everybody is reading the tea leaves. We're all making prognostications, much as all of the folks viewing here today are trying to determine what their
sorry to interrupt,
elements of life are going to involve.
It seems like the audience can't hear us right now.
One second, let's find out. Somebody asked me to turn my camera off. Maybe the audio will be better.
Maybe the audio will be better, but maybe if you...
Now we're back. We're back. I think it's just general slow internet from a majority of areas right now.
Okay.
Okay, everybody say they can hear us
Your
now.
question again, yes, I think the general consensus from those of us in the industry is that prices for freight will remain elevated in the near term until we get to find some kind of balance in the trade market.
Apologies for bad audio or bad video on this. We'll work to correct it as we go forward. A lot of people are saying they can hear us now, so that's good. One of the things that this is also changing too is booking priority for air freight. And maybe Jillian and you can talk a bit about this. We had this conversation the other day. When you are booking air freight, if you're booking general cargo, there's always a chance that you're going to be bumped. But now with shipping PPE goods, you will get bumped even if you're booked priority, correct?
What I can tell you right now is that a large amount of cargo that is booked on our flights are booked as priority, as express products, because yes, we are shipping quite a bit of PPE, not so much out of the country anymore after there was a notification from FEMA that we're actually not allowed to ship out of the United States, but we do see a lot of pharmaceuticals quite a bit. And a lot of specialized products which are booked at very high priorities. And yes, so with that, any general cargo that is booked, it is important that we have the bookings and especially the booking updates as close to what the actuals are as possible. So just updating us with the weights and the dimensions makes a huge difference because our freighter capacity is extremely valuable at the moment. And yes. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I apologize. One of the topics of conversation we had also is what you're talking about is updating the information on crates. What now happens generally is if a company books something or for an exhibition, we do not get updated crate information from the warehouse that is crating the items until last minute sometimes. So we often have to update the bookings with the airlines with the correct dimensions the day of. And speaking with Jillian the other day, she said, we need to get that information now at least 2 days in advance, 48 hours, correct, Jillian?
I would say yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what that means for us in general, specifically galleries that are used to shipping last minute, is that you need to have your things turned into the crate shop to be crated, or we need to get final dimensions on objects prior to shipping, or 2 days in advance, basically. So it means the timelines for everything move forward by weeks or days sometimes.
Right. Just keep in mind there's a drastic change in the supply of capacity in the market overall, and things will change. Things are changing month to month. So, for instance, different states are talking now about opening up of manufacturing and construction. That's very different than what we're experiencing today. And should that continue to happen, that will likely happen where we'll see more general cargo faster than we will see a change in capacity. So it can change the supply and demand situation again in a month's time.
Thomas, what, in terms of booking priority and freight getting bumped, and just generally, how do you see these booking timelines affect your museum and gallery clients?
Well, I think everybody in the industry has to cope with more, or has to deal with more flexibility in the future. I think the pre-run of every transport, either by road or by air freight, needs to have a certain time period, which is probably longer than in the past or pre-corona season. So I think this is definitely going to be one of the effects we are going to face. As Gillian already mentioned, like a lot of their aircraft are on the ground, the same we have with our trucks. So probably 90 to 95% of our trucks are basically parked. So, I mean, we have something going on, but, and I feel what I can see is that it's picking up slowly, nothing compared to pre-corona, of course, but there's already some movement. Some museums are talking, some museums are thinking of reopening soon. So I think we are going back on track, but as Jim said, it's going to take quite a while until everything's back to normal. And this is going to mean a lot of flexibility from the shipping agents as well as from the customers to deliver the same service. Yeah.
And Fritz, you feel the same way?
Well, yes, I mean, there are a lot of discussions going on already in the industry right now as we speak about the impacts of reduced freight capacity, and then also the new rules that will apply, from social distancing to, you know, not being able to put couriers on airplanes or trucks. I think that is a very important issue that we need to discuss with all our clients. It's like how do we assure our clients the level of service and give them the security that their property is handled exactly the same way, even if they can't personally stand next to it as they have been used to it. I mean, it goes in various dimensions. I mean, first of all, I think there will be a lot of museum registrars will be reluctant to travel, and so it's going to be harder to actually find people who want to travel. Number one, and number two is you simply won't be able to get on a freighter, or you won't be able to get on a truck. And so what does that mean? What are the workarounds? And so those are the things that we need to discuss, and we need to come up with the solutions that actually make sense. And and that maybe bookend couriers, more contract registrars, more trust between institutions of trusting their condition reporting, and follow cars. We're officially not allowed to take pictures or photographs inside a warehouse, but maybe, with Gillian, that is something that we can address with some of our, most important airline partners, that they will allow us to have a Zoom supervision for palletization for some museum shipments, for example, in a certain area of the warehouse. So that's a question, that we will have for you, Gillian, eventually.
I want to point,
and so
I want to focus on one thing real quick so we can make this completely clear, because this has been a question that I've seen pop up in the Q&A here. Will art couriers be allowed on freighters in this new normal? Or what is it right now? And maybe Gillian can tell us what it is right now and then what it will be going forward. Do we know?
Mm-hmm. We don't know fully what it will be in the new normal. I could tell you for the time being, we are not allowing couriers on board the aircraft. And just to give you an example, our freighter that flies actually into JFK, the layover is now done in Toronto and not in New York, because quite frankly, our crew does not want to stay overnight in New York because of the high number of cases here. So we have our crew flying from Frankfurt to Toronto, laying over in Toronto, They fly then into JFK just for a stop and fly back. These are measures that were put in and will continue to be in place until the numbers really start to come down. I'm sure at one point we will allow couriers on board again, and probably just with maybe some similar measures that we have for social distancing and requiring of masks and things like that, that we also would request in our warehouses as well.
Thomas, I want to get back
for the time being. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, please, Jillian.
No, I was just going to say for the time being, we don't have the full answers yet on when and what we would be requesting from the couriers yet.
Okay. Thomas, I want to get back to you, and I want to focus on Europe because this is a big question. We just had a question in, and they're wondering, in Europe, what will the balance of public tender and advanced planning be, basically? But also for you, I know in trucking and the number of drivers inside of cabins, can you just talk about what's happening right now in Europe as far as what's taking place as rules and regulations?
Sure. Well, as Europe is very diverse, so are the restrictions and rules. For now, for example, you are not allowed to drive through Belgium with 2 drivers on one truck. At the same time, I have to say that probably next week this regulation is probably taken out again. We are not allowed to take couriers on board right now. As far as we know, we can't drive anywhere to Europe. So we have been driving to Italy. We have been driving to England, France, Netherlands. So there's no issues at all. Although if you want to drive to Italy right now, the regulation says that you have to prepare certain documents, certain medical documents for crossing the border so that you can basically guarantee that your drivers are free of corona. On top of that, all our drivers have masks on their trucks as well as gloves and desanitizing fluids. So we prepared that. And when it comes to couriers, we are thinking of probably having couriers following us in the second part. That's one option. When it comes to the supervision at airports, basically in all the major cargo hubs from Amsterdam, Luxembourg, Liège, and Frankfurt, we are still allowed to enter the warehouse, go to the tarmac, do the supervision. We also, I talked with Jason and Fritz about it with a supervision app so that we can take photos and give our clients a good feeling that their cargo is handled very carefully and very in a very specific way. So we are already planning on doing everything we can to cope with this corona crisis. But
Thomas,
when it comes, yeah.
One of the questions, we have two questions that have come in on the Q&A too, and this, I'm going to open this up to everybody as well. But Fritz, Thomas, Jillian, they want to know, we have multiple questions of whether or not people will be allowed to, will shipping agents be allowed to FaceTime, Skype, or Zoom with lenders during the palletization, for example, or individual security requirements as well for the TSA, CCSSP matters, and the SSI. So basically, are you going to be allowed to supplement couriers not being allowed in these areas with Zoom, Skype? Do we know the answer to that right now?
Well, we know that in the United States, officially, it's not allowed to take any pictures inside a cargo warehouse, inside any TSA-approved facility. So, you know, we are reaching out to the TSA right now to have discussions to see what, you know, if there is something that can be done about it. But, you know, I doubt that there will be any official okay for us to provide this service, at least in the United States.
So what would you say the expectations of institutions and stuff that are used to having couriers on board or people supervising these things and not being available to be there? What's the alternative now?
Well, the alternative is, I mean, as it always has been, first of all, you know, working with agents that you actually trust, that that you know well, and that you know will do and deliver what they promise to deliver. I think that it's really becomes even more important now to have a level of trust with the people that you're working with. So that's really to start with. And then in Europe, obviously, Thomas just confirmed that in Europe he can still do that with his app. He can send the pictures. I mean, honestly, between us and the audience, and I hope nobody else listens to this, even though this is probably going to be available publicly, we still actually very often, or almost always, are able to provide pictures to our clients. And we have also been able to get our couriers access inside the warehouses to a large degree with some preparation and ahead of time. Going forward, we're trying to figure out a way to see if we can make pictures available. I want to work with Jillian and her team to see if there's a certain area in the warehouse that where we will be allowed to do that. It doesn't show anything else but the pallet that's being built. Those might be options, but all of that will only be possible with the explicit authorization of the TSA here in the United States.
Okay. Thomas and Fritz, do you see a glut of shipments once the economy or non-essential business gets back open again? Is that going to be an issue for upscaling, being able to do the work once it starts coming in and it comes in all at once?
If I may ask or add something to the first
Please,
question,
yes,
which
absolutely.
for the US. So I think the same which applies to trust for the shipper is like the trust the airlines have with very trusted shipping agents. So basically what we have built up on relationships with the different airlines, either Lufthansa or even other airlines like KLM or Cargo. So the level of trust is very high. And of course, I don't think we can walk around with Skype or Zoom through the restricted warehouse areas. But I think, at least in Europe, I don't know, Fritz has to answer the US part, or he already did, but I think we can at least deliver certain pictures as we have done it in the past. I don't know if there's a law which states we are not allowed to, but there's always an area in between. And again, it comes to the fact who is the agent, who is in the warehouse, how well known is he, and then obviously you should only make pictures from basically the palletization of the artwork and not from anything else. So no security gates or whatever. So I think this counts for Europe.
And
Tom, I would like you to add a little bit to it, because in the world of rock and roll, a lot of the pallets are being built actually off-site, and obviously there is full access. And maybe that is something for our outworld. I mean, if you want to talk to that for a moment, but for the outworld, maybe that will be.
I think the point here is relationships. There's a wide disparity of what's allowed at various stations. Even within a city like JFK, there's various handling agents there that are more conservative than others. So usually, as a general rule, the photographing would definitively hold to the bonded areas. But once you get outside of that, you have a little bit more leeway. And it depends on the relationship of us as agents with those individual handlers in order to gain access that your average Joe is just not going to get. So we tend to have stronger relationships and have a little bit more leeway than most others. So it's going to be an evolving situation. This isn't an adjustment to an extreme event, much like 9/11 saw a ton of security measures come in afterwards, and they didn't all come at once. They came, it was like a Chinese water torture, for Christ's sake. And we adjusted to it as we went through it. We're adjusting now. We're using our experience to do that. And I think it's going to get better as we move through this. I think some of the problems with couriers right now are born out of the fact that international travel is not happening. So the carriers across the board are trying to save their crews from exposure to third parties. But as their passenger crews are exposed more often to full loads of or partial loads of passengers in the back of the aircraft, their stance on couriers will relax. Some of the all freighter carriers are against couriers in general, but are being allowed. We did a military charter from the US to Asia a couple of weeks ago, and there of course was couriers allowed on that. Live animal charters, it's hard for them to deny the grooms to travel with those. So there are exceptions being made, and I'm sure we will work through those issues as things develop.
So I want to jump back to what Fritz was saying too about building the pallets offsite and bringing those into the airline. That's done when you buy a full position for that plane, correct?
Correct, or the full aircraft for that matter. So, if we're at a station where the facility from the handling agent doesn't lend itself, we, for the entertainment clients, having a full 100 tons of musical equipment, we like folks who are familiar with that gear, much like in the art world, you like folks who are familiar with your gear. So we'll bring our own labor on site, which, walking into a warehouse with 20 hired laborers is not necessarily something we can do right now. So we'll find an off-site facility. That is, of course, once entertainment starts happening again, we're at a bit of a standstill, much like the art world. So we find adjustments, and we may build, all the positions off-site and deliver them as intact units.
So Fritz and Thomas, if that's the case where you have to buy a full position, what does that mean for our industry where we don't regularly buy that much volume on those planes to ship? Does that mean consolidation? What does that mean?
Well, right now, I mean, pre-COVID, we had shipments going out every single day because there was, freight capacity was there and freight was very cheap. And I believe going forward, yes, I think we will see that much more often. I'm actually looking into this right now, where we have a weekly upper deck position going to Europe, and just have a fixed booking for that every single week. Because we can accomplish two things by that. We can, first of all, we are assured of the capacity, and number two, we have price control, because we will not have a shipping pricing landscape from week to week. And obviously we will do that together with our European partners, definitely with Hosncomp, to then on the receiving end take these shipments and distribute them throughout Europe. And so I think that is something that I've been thinking about for many, many years, but it was just never really a viable option because of supply and demand, and because air freight generally from the US to Europe was so reasonably priced that buying the weekly full position with the risk of not filling it every week just didn't make any sense. And I believe that's now in this new world. I mean, this is one of the solutions that will actually work, that we will be able to offer our clients. And which gives us.
Thomas, how do you look at that too, as far as consolidation and stuff in Europe?
I mean, back in the days, we had already the consolidation idea, and during big shows like Art Basel, Miami, or Hong Kong, we already work with consolidation ideas, not only due to pricing, but also due to reducing the carbon footprint. We're doing the same in the trucking area. So basically, we try not to move just one painting with one courier in a 12-ton truck, which is driving all across Europe. So I think, as Fritz mentioned, consolidation, flexibility is definitely two things which are going to be more common than pre-corona. And this is in the air freight as in the trucking part, definitely is going to be the case for sure.
I have a question here too.
Also, if I may
Go
add
ahead,
that,
please. Yes.
I think even if you have shows which multiple lenders and every lender is sending a courier, I think also this is going to be more that the trust is building up not only between the shipping agents, also between the couriers or the registrars of the museums and galleries, that they sending one person who is really familiar with what they're dealing with, and then to reduce that amount of flights and people.
So, so many questions here. People are writing in with the Q&A, and there are a lot of really good questions here. The first one I'm going to jump on is booking. Someone has booked a U.S. exclusive truck, booked at pre-COVID rates during May and June. Will those rates hold? So how are Fritz and Thomas, how are you dealing with bookings that were made prior to COVID that are now coming up? Do those rates still hold?
Absolutely not. Nothing holds from pre-COVID because, again, because of those capacity issues that are going on right now. It's like nobody anticipated this particular crisis, and nobody anticipated that air freight rates would triple or quadruple. And so certainly any job that has not started and may have been booked like a month or 2 months ago and is about to chart, hopefully is going to actually get going in June if things are starting to open up again. Every single agent in the world will revisit the estimates that we're giving and the premise that was used pre-COVID, and communicate to their clients, look, this is a new landscape. The freight costs will go up, the trucking costs will go up. These are all, you cannot base anything going forward on what was estimated 2 months ago and beyond.
Same for you guys too, Thomas?
Unfortunately, I can't add anything or correct him, even if I would like to. But
right.
This is something nobody expected, and the airline industry, Jillian, probably you can hold the prices we reserved like 2 months ago, and therefore everything has to be readjusted. And we are already having now a little shuttle going through Europe. So we implemented that this week. So we have from London to Vienna and from Berlin all the way to Paris and Zurich. We have now shuttles going, definitely with some more flexibility. So we have to tell our clients, yes, it's planned to go on in the next 2 weeks, and we try everything to make it happen. But if the truck has a certain capacity, we cannot drive unless the cost will just go through the roof. So therefore, yeah.
One of the questions that I have on the Q&A that keeps popping up, and I don't know if you guys know the answer to this, but what are we looking at for a percentage increase in priority air freight rates? Do we know what the percentage increase is now?
Jillian, I'll let you field that as the carrier, but I would say it's definitively going to change by lane segment and demand as it adjusts. But go ahead.
So let's go ahead, Jillian.
No, and as I mentioned before, we've seen changes in the rates. We saw different rates in March than we're even seeing in April, and May can be different as well. It all depends on the situation, and unfortunately right now it's so volatile that it's changing month to month.
We're getting charter quotes out of Asia to both Europe and the United States, and definitively telling our clients that the price that you're getting today holds for today. This will not be the price you may see on tomorrow morning. And if this is Thursday when we're quoting, it's definitively not going to be the price on Monday. And we're seeing things jump from what used to be a $350,000 charter out of Asia is now at 850, and by Monday we're seeing that price jump to 1.1 million.
Is that right?
It is still up over, still in the 7 digits, and well into it and fluctuating every day.
How many pallet positions are on a charter aircraft?
Typical a 747-400 has 30 main deck positions and 9 lower deck positions. So, we also saw a whole nother segment enter the market in the last month, and it's carriers like Lufthansa and others of a dearth of wide body aircraft that are sitting on the ground, and some of them are starting to utilize them to fly cargo only. So they're essentially a new segment of the cargo charter market. And some of those folks that entered the market just 2 weeks ago out of Asia and are pricing those aircraft just based on a percentage of the volume of a 747. 2 weeks later, they're realizing that the demand is there and their prices are going up 30% from where they started. So it's a very, very fluid market. And this holds to sea freight as well. The sea freight industry has been disrupted just as greatly as air freight. I saw an article just yesterday morning that this coming month, we're looking at over 350 blank sailings. That's 350 ships not making their normal routes. That is a lot of sea container capacity that is no longer in the market. But yet, what is traveling, we're seeing rates go up roughly 15-20%, not as dramatically as air freight, but those prices are rising as well because the industry is adjusting its supply to meet the demand and keeping the price
and there is another aspect to it because artwork, sorry to interrupt you, there's another aspect, art-related aspect to this because artwork, when we ship it by ocean freight, and it happens actually more frequently than one may believe, is usually shipped in reefer containers. And reefer containers are simply almost unavailable right now because they're all being used for medical equipment, etc., and perishables. And so it's become extremely difficult to get good, clean equipment for final shipments.
Yeah. There's a high demand of pharmaceuticals right now, so we do see a lot of requests for reefer containers as well.
Even air reefer containers, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
a glimpse of hope, we can say, at least from the trucking side. I mean, I totally agree with the effort. Say we can maintain our trucking costs right now, and we try to level out an increase in prices with the flexibility of our customers. So even if we cannot say, okay, we deliver as promised on a Tuesday, we still are manageable to level out the cost and maybe therefore deliver on Friday. So within a week, I think we are still able to deliver at the same cost.
Sean, the other day we were speaking and you talked briefly about risk versus reward, economics and anxiety, like the booking. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think what we were talking about was the music industry in general. And we deal with a lot of artist managers, promoters, and booking agents on a regular basis. So as we're trying to kind of get a feel for when the entertainment industry is going to come back, and it has a lot of the same dynamics that I believe your larger art exhibitions and shows have. If you're moving from point to point, you not only have the authorities in one city. If you're having a single event, you have the politicians and health officials in that single location, let's call it Paris, that are going to determine your fate on whether or not that event is going to happen as planned. When you have an exhibit that's touring, like our musical artist tour, then those risks and the amount of folks who hold your fate in their hand increases exponentially. So as our clients on the entertainment side are looking forward to planning their itineraries that may include stops throughout Europe in 30 different locations and 12 or 13 different countries, the amount of things that can go wrong by somebody's independent decisions. And let's face it, we're all following the virus and how it reacts. That changes the whole risk-reward dynamic. So it becomes an equation that includes both economics and anxiety, because you're anxious on whether or not your event is going to be financially successful, but you also have the anxiety of the public right now on whether or not they're going to be there for your event, based on the moment in time that event ends up in.
I have a very specific question. Do we see shipping delays right now from South America? And in terms of days or weeks, is South America being affected by this like the rest of the world?
Yes, and apparently they're a little behind the curve. To our brothers in Brazil and many other locations, they're starting to see the spike that we experienced here in New York, New Jersey a month ago. So it is a rolling event, and yes, they're getting hit.
One more question for you too, Sean. Are we anticipating equally long recovery time for ocean shipments as well as airline shipments?
In general, yes. But I think once Europe and the United States open back up our industrial plants to follow as China does, there should be some normalization, because the majority of that is driven by larger industry, and those will come back online.
We've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to jump to Fritz and Thomas on this. First, I want to say, what do you guys anticipate being necessary adjustments and solutions, maybe like tracking devices to supplement couriers? Fritz, Thomas, do you want to speak a bit about this?
Thomas, do you want to start?
Well, I mean, tracking device has always been a topic we are following up, especially tracking device who are monitoring the humidity and temperature of the crates at the same time. So that's definitely going to be more on the market. We have to figure out how practicable it is. The same thing, I think, having good crates, proven crates, which has been in the market for a long time, I think are going to be a big topic in the future. And I think the development in that area has been going on. I know Fritz has been, Dietl has been involved in research, and I think the same is with us. And I think we're going to have a solution for that.
Fritz?
So, sorry for the brief interruption here. My assistant, my personal assistant, has come to try to help me. There are a lot of things that we are discussing and thinking about right now about how to keep our employees safe. And that's one thing about, if you have an office full of people, trying to stagger who is in, who is out, who's working from home, et cetera, et cetera. That's, to start with. Then also capacities. It's like, our business is shrunk right now to basically nothing. How fast will it come back? How long can we keep everybody together? Our really fantastic and experienced team. So those are the things that we're really all thinking about right now, and have to think about right now as businessmen. And then the other thing, also our technicians, our drivers, our the people out in the field. What are the new procedures? How do we engage with our clients? How do we social distance when you install a painting that takes a couple of people to install and unpack and to handle, because you're not necessarily 6 feet apart from each other. How can we tell clients to please just step back and don't come near me? These new rules of engagement. All of this is starting to happen right now, and these rules are being written right now as we speak. There's business going on right now. Business has not completely stopped. There are some jobs that are critical that have to happen, or are happening for whatever reason, these continue right now. And so, we're putting these really strict rules of engagement into place where, we don't let, outside crews enter our facilities, our warehouses, and when we have to, that we keep crews together, so that the same crew works with each other all the time and doesn't intermingle with any of the other crews, that the people outside in the field don't intermingle with people inside the warehouse, the warehouses, etc. And so all of this, this new playbook is being written right now, and it will involve our clients, and we will need a lot of feedback from our clients on how they will be comfortable to engage with us and with our teams. Like when we go into a museum, how will the museum community feel about it? And if you have a truck going from an exclusive truck going from New York to another part of the country that may not be as affected, what are the rules of engagements once we get there?
Fritz, this question keeps coming up in the Q&A here. How are institutions, museums that start their estimates years in advance sometimes for these shipments, these large multi-venue shipments, and I want to talk to you about this, Sean, a little bit too, for multi-venue, but how are they supposed to build a budget when so many things are unknown right now? So how can they possibly work on an estimate and get an accurate number to present to somebody and say, this is what it's going to cost in a year? What do you suggest they do?
Well, that is a really, really good question right now, because it's like in general, every budget from us and from all our competitors usually already have a number of caveats built into these budgets. And so, so the question is it a budget or is it a hard number that you want? If you want a hard number, then right now you will get something that's very, very expensive, because it has to take the current situation into account. If you're asking me for a budget for a museum exhibition that's happening next year, I will, to a large degree, go to normal pricing as we had in the past, with the exception of likely increasing the air freight cost, by a certain percentage, and adding some wording into the estimate explaining what we're doing with, and that the air freight is in flux and will be different next year than it is right now.
I understand. I can already tell you what the next question is going to be on there based on that response is, what percentage are you going to add to that air freight for a year from now?
For a year from now, I would say, if I would quote something right now, let's call it, it's $3 a kilo. For next year, I will go to at least $5.50. Probably I will at least add 50% right now for pricing next year, just to be on the safe side. And even that may not be enough. We may decide to go to 100%.
So I'll answer the question from the different perspective, not as the vendor, but as a touring professional. I've spent half my last 35 years inside the Rockit world as a vendor to the touring industry, but the other half as a production manager, making some of the decisions that I believe the folks listening here today are making. So when you're putting your budget together, you're not only looking at the pricing that you may be getting from Dietl and your other vendors, but you're also looking at your potential revenue side as well. And you're going to have to make, honestly, in this situation where we can't quite see through the fog into the future, we have to make allowances on both the top line and the bottom line of that budget. And your vendors are going to be giving you higher numbers, but when you put that number into your budget, you probably want to add 20% to it too. When you're looking at your revenue, what you might have thought was your revenue line 3 months ago, you may want to cut by a third, because you won't be allowed to have the capacity that you thought you were going to have based on whatever restrictions might be forthcoming. Those are all going to be hard math problems. But hopefully it will start to clear up soon. But
I think it's important to note here too, and we've talked about, I talked to each of you individually about this a little bit as well too. We are all working as experts in this field to mitigate that in some way and to figure out solutions that will help these institutions and your touring act, Sean, save money long term. So what are some of those solutions, Fritz, Thomas, that you guys anticipate we can do to help save money in the long term when we're dealing with these issues?
I would say, first of all, when it comes to budget, I think the only thing which is really difficult to have to find out for the future is basically the air freight prices. When it comes to crating, trucking, art handling, all that is more or less predictable. So there's nothing really to add on that part that much, at least for the European side. Even if I repeat me, but I think the key to cope with those increasing prices will be flexibility. This is a key issue. If we have enough time to consolidate shipments, if it's air freight shipment, road shipments, or sea shipments, flexibility helps. It's like booking your holiday. If you book your flight the next day, it's a lot more expensive than if you say, well, I want to fly from Frankfurt to New York, but I don't care if it's a Friday or a Monday or a Wednesday, just give me a week. And every pricing tool in this world will give you a more reduced price if you are more flexible. And I think the same applies to our industry. So if you give the shipper, if you say, well, we have a consolidated shipment, we can leave it in the warehouse for a certain time, and then we have a bigger time frame where we can actually send and negotiate with the airlines. I think that helps a lot, and I think this is going to be key for the next, at least for this year.
So does that mean that institutions and galleries and staff on loan agreements are going to have to build in more time in those loan agreements, or how does that work in terms?
I think, I think the entire industry on all levels, from galleries to museums, will have to rethink a little bit. It's like when you look at Europe and the public tender system, which, it has a lot of issues and pitfalls to begin with in good times, but we have seen many exhibitions getting booked at the very, very last minute, and we have seen price increases even during normal times because the decision was made so late in the process and did not give us or our competitors enough time to book and fulfill the job on normal schedules. And so all of a sudden, high air freight charges, exclusive trucks, etc., are necessary on something, that may have been based on an out shuttle pickup somewhere in the middle of the country. And that becomes even more important now. I think the planning and decisions need to be made much earlier. And it's the same thing in the commercial world, in the gallery world, where, decisions on showing a work at an art fair, halfway across the world, are being made sometimes, just a few days before the start of the event. And, that's just not the reality going forward, at least for some time, because of all the issues that we discussed earlier already. So I think it becomes pre-planning, early planning, and early decision-making is absolutely key. And then, being flexible and, again, also repeating what Thomas already said, being flexible and looking at different solutions that they never even thought about before, because you just, have the luxury not to think about it. Consolidated shipments, consolidated crating, waiting, not having exclusive trucks, but waiting for a few days before, this was trucks with a couple of stops along the way, and on the museum side, I think we will, at least for some time, see fewer couriers. And if we see that for some time, I think that will also then become the reality going forward in the long term.
We are right at our 1 hour. We're going to go a little bit over on this because I have a couple more questions. I hope you guys don't mind real quick. I wanted to jump to this for you, Sean, because I think this is an important thing for our institutions. We were talking the other day specifically with tours that you're doing through venues in multiple countries and the difficulty that that's going to entail because of all the regulations that change from country to country. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Because it will affect our touring exhibitions for our museums as well, too.
Well, I think we hit on it before, that the folks who, the managers, the artists, and the promoters who are making these bookings, have to look at all those new risks that are out there and make business decisions that are just based on a different equation than they've been using for the last 20 or 30 years. But I do want to add something really, really positive that a musical artist said on a call the other day, is that we should never discount the power of the human spirit to do the things that give us pleasure. He used the point that we've all known smoking causes cancer and death for decades, but people do it because it gives them pleasure. Don't underestimate the drive to do the things that give us pleasure. And let's be honest, that in communing with others to enjoy the arts has given us pleasure for hundreds and thousands of years. It will, our industries will survive. People will come back. It'll just be a little journey.
I should have let you sign us off. That was wonderful. I do have a couple more questions. Fritz, and I want to hit on just a couple more topics, and then we're going to wrap this up. Fritz, struggling art handling companies and cash flow issues. Do you want to address that real quick?
Yes, I think that is an important topic because the industry is very widespread, and there are large companies that will find it easier to get through this crisis. But we see a lot of small suppliers across the United States, and I even hear it from across the pond. That are really struggling right now, and the question is, will they be able to get through this crisis, and will they survive? And different levels of government support in Europe compared to the United States. Here, there isn't really a whole ton of support, and the support that's there is really tough to get, and doesn't last very long and won't help you very long. So. So that will add to the capacity issues that we will face going forward, because my feeling is some of these smaller companies just will not make it, unfortunately. And, so all we can do is try to support them as much as possible. Because, at Dietl International, we are one of the biggest buyers of art services in the industry. And maybe the biggest buyer in the industry. And so, my mission right now is to try to save as many of these players as possible. And so to our clients, who have the capacity to pay their invoices right now, if I may be so blunt, in this forum, my suggestion is keep that in mind. You need these people, you need these companies, you need these suppliers going forward. So.
One of the questions we have on the Q&A is, have you seen any slowdown in CITES or other official documents from governments coming through?
Well, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is up and operating. They have to; it's an essential service. But we haven't had too many new applications for CITES permits in the past month. So I can't really talk to any delays on that. But in my opinion, likely there will be delays. We know from Europe that the fine art export licenses, for example, in the UK. Fine art export licenses right now, you can't get them for the next 6 weeks because that office is just simply shut down. So if you're trying to export a work of fine art from the UK that requires the license, that's just simply a no-go right now for the next many weeks. Maybe Thomas, you can talk to that for a moment.
Well, as far as we noticed so far, UK companies are not allowed to drive outside of the UK, but for example, we are allowed to drive in the UK. So, and some agents make it possible to just generate the export license, and they open the warehouse, but with no help. So basically our drivers pull up, they have masks and gloves and everything, load the truck, and then drive off. So that's how we are handling that with the UK so far. And we have a huge consolidated shipment of several galleries going to London, I think on the 11th, I think. Yeah, so it is possible, but it's tricky. And again, you need to have a good relationship to agents over there to get their export license.
Okay.
For the rest of Europe, everything is possible.
All right. I want to open this up to each of you if you want to say anything here at the end, but I wanted to take the time to thank everybody for taking the moment to come spend the hour with us and discuss this. As always, write your professionals that you work with on a daily basis and get the information direct from them if you have questions. Write us if you have questions, and we will do our best to get back to you as soon as possible and give you whatever information is changing day to day. And please tune in on our bi-weekly Dietl webinar. We'll be sending these out more often, and you can check it on our YouTube channel as well too. First, Thomas, do you want to say anything here before we go?
I just want to thank Sean for that great finale, and basically I have nothing to add to that, and
I plagiarized it.
100% agree with you, and especially in the museums world, I think going into the museum with a mask is not that crowded than on a rock concert right now. So I think when it especially comes to the museum and gallery world, it's easy to open up again. Definitely you have to have some security measures, and maybe not let 100,000 people at the same time in the museum, but I think there's enough you can do, and I hope just that every museum and gallery opens up pretty soon, and a lot of other art enthusiasts are coming by and buying art, and the whole show starts again. But Sean, you made it perfect.
Sean, I did have one question. Somebody wants to know if you can divulge who the artist was that said that.
That was Pharrell.
Nice, thank you. Jillian, you want to say something?
Just from my end, I just want to say thank you all for your support during these challenging times. And I think the key message here from the airline side is that booking updates and flexibility here is really key. I think tracking devices are an excellent alternative. And also, I think that the long-standing relationship also between Lufthansa and Dietl is a very valuable service to all, because we do see Dietl employees in our warehouse. They follow the same procedures as our own employees, and they're regularly there also looking out for your shipments as well.
Thank you. And then Sean, you good?
I'll go out on a high note. Thank you.
Mr. Dietl, Fritz?
Well, first of all, after what Jillian just said, where's my finger? Right here.
Yeah.
I say everybody fly Lufthansa. It's an amazing gallery. I just want to add a little bit to what Thomas said. I mean, like, you know, I think galleries and museums, galleries in Germany are already opening up. They are open. My feeling is in New York, as soon as in the next few weeks, in my opinion, galleries will start to open up again. And museums that may take a little bit longer, but they will open. The one thing that we will all face is funding. You know, museums will not have the funding going forward that they had until now. They have run through a lot of emergency funds and endowments right now to, you know, just to keep going. And so this is money that will be missing. Donor money will be missing. That's that these large exhibitions are depending on. So I think in general, we will see going forward, you know, lower volume of exhibitions and shipments moving. Smaller galleries won't be able to participate in as many art fairs as before, because basically the cash flow will not be there to do that. But having said that, I also very strongly believe in our industry bouncing back and coming back, and it will take time to get back to the good old times of 2019 when things were just groovy and moving really fast. But we will survive this. We survived many different crises before. This is a little bit more extreme than what we have seen, but I know our capacity for having fun is there, and our capacity to be creative and survive has also been proven. So we will be there for you. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in.
Fritz, you can end this one. You're the host this time. We'll see you all in 2 weeks, hopefully.
Thank you, everybody. We really
Thank you,
appreciate
Sean.
it.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you.
Thomas.
Bye.